Hello, my name is Christy Rose. I'm the owner of KBShimmer. I make cold processed soap along with other bath and body products, and today I thought I'd show you how I do in the pot swirling. I'm going to be working with a scent called Black Raspberry Vanilla. It is a lovely scent that doesn't discolor soap much, and I've just finished measuring out my fragrance for my batch. I am working with 64 ounces of oils today, so I'm using about 4 ounces of fragrance. And when doing cold processed soap, it's very important, in my mind, to keep the oils and the batter as bubble free as possible. So when I measure in my oils and butters into my large pot, I slowly pour them in over my spatula. I find that having the oils flow down to the side of the pot produces a lot less bubbles in the oil. And when you cut your bars, the less bubbles you have in your oils, the smoother they're going to be in appearance. So I'm just pouring in the rest of my oils and butters into my pot here. And I do like to scrape it out, just making sure that I've got every little bit. I do use soapcalc.com to compile recipes, so I like to be very exact in the amount of oils and butters that I get in there, getting every little bit I can. When working with lye, it is important that you have a very accurate recipe and accurate measurements so you don't have your soap be lye heavy. Now I'm just going to pour in my fragrance. When I do swirling, I like to have the fragrance in ahead of time. I find that I have more time to work with. For me, soaping with the fragrance ahead of time causes less issues than adding it after my soap is out of trace. Okay, so here I have all my oils, butters, and fragrance in the pot. The next thing that I do is when I'm working with different swirl colors, I get a cup and I put a little bit of oil in it, and I'm going to grab my micas. I'm going to use micas for this batch, and I'm going to mix it up ahead of time. With this batch I'm doing, this red, I want to use a good amount, maybe 2 tablespoons of it. I'm also going to be using some activated bamboo charcoal, and for that I'm going to use a little bit less, maybe a tablespoon of that. And one of my favorite tools is a frother. You can get these at IKEA, at your local coffee shops, a lot of different places. The frother is just going to help me mix up my colors. A little powdery at first, but getting a nice, smooth, consistent color mixed in here, so you don't have any lumps to start out with when you're mixing your soap base in. And if you just kind of let it go a little bit, it cleans itself off. Here I'm going to do the same thing with the black, but I'm going to mix it a little bit ahead of time because the charcoal is really powdery. You'll notice that I am working with gloves. I haven't been in contact with my lye water yet. I do have that mixed up. I pre-mixed my lye water so it's nice and cool when I go to soap. But I do like to keep my products as contaminant free as possible, and not only that, but keep myself safe. So for me, gloves are a must. I'm also going to get out my trusty safety goggles, and I'm going to put those on. So here I have my pot. Here's my pot again. I'm going to take out my spatula. I have my lye water all mixed up ahead of time. It's nice and clear. It's cool. It's room temperature. And I've got my stick blender here. So what I like to do before I mix the lye in is I get my stick blender in there and I tap out any bubbles I can. Again, less bubbles equals smoother soap when you cut it. And I'm just going to mix it around a little bit, making sure that all the oils and fragrances are equally distributed throughout the whole batch. Okay. Now I'm ready to add my lye water to my oils, and I'm just going to slowly pour that in. Again, pouring it slowly allows less bubbles to get into the mixture. And here I actually use my stick blender to help out instead of a spatula or the side of the pot. Okay, so we've got all the live water in there. And when I'm working with my soap and swirling in the pot, I like to work at a very, very light trace. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start doing a couple pulses, a couple swirls around, and you can see almost instantly it's turning from a clear liquid, the clear melted oil look, into a creamy, opaque consistency. As the lye emulsifies with the oils and the water, it's going to become more opaque. Just do a nice little buzz around. I work at a very, very, very light trace, almost when it's just emulsified. I'm confident in my recipe. I know that it's not going to separate on me, so I feel comfortable doing this. If you are working with an unfamiliar recipe, you might want to go a little bit longer and get a light trace. Trace is when you take the soap and you dribble it over the top, and it leaves lines across it that you can see. So I've got my soap just to the emulsified stage, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to take my colorants that I've mixed ahead of time, and I'm going to pour some of the soap batter in there. And for this batch, I know that my cups hold about 16 ounces full, so I'm going to use a little bit less than that. I want about a cup and a half, about 12 ounces for each color. So I've got that poured in there, and you can take your frother at this point and you can use that to mix, but the frother does add a little bit more bubbles in there than I like, so I will start it with my spatula just to get it all mixed in there. You can see it's a nice bright red color. This is the Crimson Bordeaux mica from TKB Trading. Just going to scrape that off here. In some batches that have contrasting colors, reds and yellows, blues and yellows, blues and greens, I will have separate spatulas for each color. But here, since I'm using red and black, I'm okay using the same spatula. Okay. With the charcoal, it is helpful to take the stick blender and do a little buzz through. I'm just tapping it down at the bottom and make sure I don't have any air bubbles trapped underneath the bell like that. Okay. At this point, I'll probably do the same thing with the red. So I'm just going to take a paper towel and I'm going to wipe out the outside so I don't contaminate the red with the black too much. see really how nice of a red that is against the white of the stick blender. Okay, let's